What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism, back again with another video for your viewing pleasure. Today it is a video dedicated to Mr. Brian Cox, or Professor Brian Cox, who going forward will be named and go simply by Cryin' Box. That's courtesy of Bob, or Xanadude60. He called him that, and I think it's classic, so I'll be referring to him as Cryin' Box for the rest of all eternity. Speaking of Mr. Xanadude60, starting next Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be starting the Bob and Jaren Show, or the Jaren and Bob Show, or the insert name here show. Just basically a live show where you can write in your questions. My wife will be fielding them, so we'll be able to get to a lot of them. So check it out. Like I said, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time next Monday. And also keep an eye on my channel as we will attempt to go live again to test the curvature sometime this week. I actually finally learned how to do a live stream from my iPhone through the YouTube channel, so at least we don't have to send you to Ustream anymore. But we are going to do a couple things different. We're going to change locations, number one. We did have some issues. Not sure if it was because of where we were at, but we had a boat park right in front of us and shine a nice spotlight at both of us, so somebody wasn't happy with us hanging out there. We're also going to go much further. Since we've got the portable sun, we think that we'll move somewhere even like 50 miles and see if we can see anything, since that would put us at about 1,000 feet below the curve. And last thing is, we're not going to give our location until we're there, so that we can test if the people showing up are showing up for a reason, or if we're just getting unlucky, or what's going on. So, but keep an eye on the channel, and we'll be testing soon. If you take a look at the video on the screen now, you'll actually see me, the little flashy white light, over there in the pitch black, dark, scary-ass night the beach, and we just had a couple issues with it being, one, too dark to see, so the camera really can't see what it's doing, and like I said, we had an issue with a boat out there. And the other issue was, at the beginning, she couldn't see me at all, and I was upset because I was down all the way at the water and couldn't figure out what was the reason. Then I checked my altitude map, or app, and I was at negative 28 feet. Meaning 28 feet below sea level. So at that point I realized that I was standing in the shallow ocean, and there's sharks out there, and jellyfish, and big whales, and starfish. So needless to say, I was a little freaked out because it was dark to start with, and once you had shined the portable sun for a minute or two, all of a sudden when you turned it off, it was pretty much as black as it could get. And then to find out that you're 28 feet below sea level and are unsure of the tides, and pretty much wouldn't even try to get out of the ocean. If it came and attacked me, I would just call it quits and float off. Be too scared to swim. Be too cold. I'd have a heart attack. And to the science backers and the scientism believers, just remember one thing for me, that we all went to school just like you did. So seeing the comment board lit up with little facts like the Coriolis effect, and which way water drains in different hemispheres, and just remember, we went to school, so you don't need to explain those things to us. It's not like we came out of a cave. We went to school and have decided that those things we were taught don't jive with reality. So we are testing them, and you don't need to get so upset. If science was what science says it is, then it should welcome inquiry and welcome challenges and welcome people who are trying to disprove the accepted theories. And pointing out that it seems like we're finding a lot of NASA lies and science lies, which, if you think about it, Are people who are standing for the truth ever in a position where they need to lie? Probably very rarely. Usually it's the people trying to cover something up. So, keep your eyes open, ears open, and listen to everything you can, and we'll continue making the best decisions we can off the information we get. Now on to my good buddy, Crying Box, the great and powerful professor. I needed to look up professor to see what that meant, and according to the dictionary, it is to receive formally into a religious community, following the acceptance of the required vows, which certainly sounds right, to confess one's faith or allegiance to, and to practice or claim to be versed in a calling. So, Mr. Box, Lying Talks, or Brian Cox, you, sir, are kind of a disgrace to science, and the absolute worst kind of role model for kids who might be interested at all in joining... What? That's not him? You sure? Oh, I thought that was him. I'll take it down. So, Mr. Box has stated, since he is the knower of all things, and the only one in the world, I guess, who knows every fact there is, that if you don't believe in the moon landings, that you are a knobhead and have to get a new brain. First of all, he spelt knobhead, N-O-B, so I don't know if he was trying to actually pay us a secret compliment, because knob means somebody who is part of a upper class society, and I don't think that's what he meant. He probably meant spelling with a K, in which case he meant dickhead, in which case that's not very scientific. On top of that, I kind of like my brain, and I've never seen them for sale anywhere, so where do you get a new one?
And I suppose you can see why there might have been some debate, because from here, the Earth certainly looks flat. Now, everybody knows that it's round. But how do you know? You know because someone told you. And I suppose if you really think that seeing is believing, then you would have had to wait until we left our planet, journeyed off into space, turned around and took a picture to see our beautiful spherical Earth.
Wait a second. Say again, how exactly do we know this is true?
How do you know? You know because someone told you.
Wait, what part of the scientific method is that?
How do you know? You know because someone told you.
Well, Crying, someone also told me we didn't go to the moon. But, personally, I don't like that kind of evidence. I prefer real evidence. Like this picture proves that oranges have peels. And this picture here proves that you're very close-minded and think science has all the answers. And this picture here proves you have a potty mouth and need to have your mouth washed out with soap. And this picture proves you're Carl Sagan. So those are the kind of proofs I'm talking about. And I will now show you some evidence that your little moon landings never happened. Now, I know most of you have seen this footage before, but I'll show you again. You could watch carefully right here. This is Apollo 11, the onboard film. I know that was extremely fast, so I'll slow it down for you so we can see what exactly is outside of the spaceship, in space. See here, we slow it down and we'll notice right here something pop into the screen. And they look like they're fixing a satellite dish or something, and then they realize they're being watched and like, oop, run away. So slow that down on your player and watch it and freeze frame it and tell me how we have people out in space, Professor.
This is the first ever photograph taken from space of the Earth, fully illuminated by the sun. Taken in 1972 by the Apollo 17 astronauts as they travelled to the moon, it became the most viewed image in history and was named the Blue Marble. This shape is echoed throughout the universe. Look at every star and every planet, and you'll see that the sphere is dominant.
You do realize there's a difference between circle and sphere. right? I would hope so, being a professor and all. I mean, this right here is the best view of Pluto that any telescope can get. You're telling me you know that's a sphere?
And it's all because of gravity, the same thing that keeps our feet firmly rooted to the floor. With gravity, the bigger the mass, the stronger the attraction.
Now, I'm not very massive compared to a planet, and neither is this pier. So the gravitational force that this rock feels is overwhelmingly dominated by the Earth. And so when I drop it, it falls directly towards the centre of the Earth. And that's the reason that planets are the shape that they are.
It's because gravity attracts everything towards the centre of a planet that they form as spheres.
In the early days of the life of the solar system, our young sun was surrounded by lots of dust and rocks. But some pieces of rock were bigger than others, and that meant that they had slightly stronger gravity, so they attracted more and more smaller pieces to them, and they grew, and they became bigger and bigger and bigger.
And the great part about science is that this can be tested. Right, Cryan? So where can I see this test where dust becomes rotating and orbiting planets?
So, what kind of shape will gravity tend to form? Well, it's not going to form an irregular shape like this, because gravity doesn't care about direction. It will form a shape that doesn't care about direction either. Now, the only shape in nature that looks the same from every direction is a sphere.
It's the most symmetrical shape in the universe, and that's why you see it everywhere. Now, it's not easy to mould solid rock into a sphere, but gravity gives planets a helping hand to form that perfect shape.
Now imagine this is one of those small pieces of rock falling towards the young, ever-growing Earth. Now when it hits the ground, it delivers energy to it. You hear some of that as sound, but some of it also goes into heat. Now imagine, over millions and millions of years as the Earth grows, how many millions and millions of pieces of rock smash into the Earth and make it grow. They deliver a huge amount of energy to the Earth.
And all that energy made the centre of our planet get so hot that it melted its solid core, making it even easier for the sphere to form. And incredibly, some of that heat is still escaping today, helping to fuel volcanoes across the Earth's surface. Gravity is the reason that our planet is spherical, but it doesn't always win out. Not everything in space is quite as perfect.
So spheres are fickle things. They only form over a certain size. And the rocks and pebbles on these beaches all have their own gravity, but it's far too weak to reshape the structure of the rocks into spheres. So, just like these beaches, the solar system is littered with odd-shaped rejects.
At 27 kilometres across, Mars's moon Phobos is so tiny, it looks more like a potato than a planet. And covered in craters, the strangest of them all is Saturn's sponge-like moon Hyperion, which looks unlike anything else in the solar system. On average, moons must reach about 500 kilometres in size before they have enough mass for their gravity to shape them into a sphere.
The solar system is a world of spheres, but there are plenty of places out there that never quite made it. And it's quite a thought to think that if our Earth had been much smaller, then gravity would not have been strong enough to sculpt it into that beautiful, perfect blue marble that we see hanging against the blackness of space.
So, a special treat for you guys today. I was lucky enough to get the good professor to come and speak on my channel. And he's going to teach you a little bit about Pluto. Because, we've only dug 8 miles here on Earth, but Pluto being 3 billion miles away, we know all there is to know. Professor. Hello, Jeranism fans. I'm Crying Box, and want to show you fascinating Pluto. Did you know that Pluto's distance can change anywhere from 2.66 billion to 4.67 billion miles from the Earth? And did you know that Pluto is of course spherical? Because spherical is everything that everybody wants to be. If you're not spherical, you're not cool. You're a knobhead if you don't like spheres. Every single thing that I own is spherical. It's the only thing in existence worth owning at all. So pretend we've just flew out to Pluto and opened up his perfectly spherical body. We'll find there a core of iron and nickel and alloy rock. The rest of that sphere is all water ice, but still it's perfect because it's a sphere. Jaren, thank you for having me. I had a most splendid time talking about your and my favorite things. Big, beautiful, bold spheres. And remember, my hair is prettier than 98.7% of females. Thank you for your time. I'm on my way now to a Justin Bieber concert in my new car, the Nissan Sphere. Thanks a lot, Brian. That was really informative. Now I will pick apart the NASA ball. It is not a sphere, it is a circle. But you'll see that if we just break it up, inside we got some liars. A little bit deeper inside we got clowns. A little bit more towards the outside we've got some Freemasons. At the very core we've got rotten scumbags. Then we've got the famous 33-degree orbit. And lastly, we've got, well, we're a little bit confused. It's either the vector snake tongue or this magnificent bathing suit. Not sure which one. We'll now get to watch a little Soyuz from the Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. And you tell me who needs a new brain. If I say it's fake, and Mr. Crying Box says it's real. You tell me.
The roll maneuver, now that the Soyuz is in the proper location, as the roll maneuver actually places the vehicle's docking system on target for that Rosviet docking port as well.
We are performing the fly around maneuver. Copy. Range is 180, range rate is 006.
Because I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm setting up for that perfect shot, that one you just can't miss, I make sure there's a big piece of metal right in front of my face. That's the way to take pictures.
We show final approach, and we are looking at the docking mechanism of MRM-1. We are entering the eclipse. We are in the eclipse. Ranges.
I'm really sorry. I just don't think this sound fits what I'm seeing, so let me fix that.
go to space.
Well, okay, kids. Buckle up. Now we're gonna fly. Gonna fly through space. Imagination is great. Imagine there's such place. Hey kids, after we're done, you can play on my computer and I'll teach you how to CGI images, then pass them off as real. Remember kids, if anyone asks if we came to space, you tell them we sure did. And then if they ask you to swear on the Bible, punch them in the face and be a hero.
Zero gravity.
Space is great.
No reality.
Space is great.
Remember what I always say, I love you and you love me, and NASA's a piece of shit agency. I mean, Crime Box, really. Look at this video. Believe it or not, taken by NASA and some spacecraft or space probe that's supposedly trailing the Earth from a few miles behind. And somehow they got the moon occulting the sun. Watch it again. And I'm the knobhead. And you believe in this. You can even see through it. Look again. Watch right here as it gets to the yellow and you'll see through it. See that? And you guys will just let them keep getting away with it. Don't question anything. Because somebody told you. It's a sphere. So everyone stand back, please, and prepare for science. Here is the quote that is the topic of the day. Crime Box says, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you don't think Apollo 11 landed on moon, you are a colossal knob end and should get a new brain. I was hoping that you misspelled the word brain and it was supposed to say Brian. I would have happily got a new Brian. Then, just to add fuel to the fire, came your little buddy, everyone's favorite liar, Buzz the I drink so I don't have to remember that I never went to the moon Aldrin, who said, Professor Brian Cox is a pretty smart guy. Also, the Russians would have totally exposed it by now if we hadn't landed. So what he's basically saying to everyone is, I certainly wouldn't have ever told the truth. You would have never heard it from me. I would have kept selling quarters that I pretended were in my pocket for $10,000. But the Russians, they would have exposed it. Yeah, just because all their landers really went to the moon too, right, Buzz? Nobody working together. The Cold War. Woo-hoo-hoo. A lot of bombs dropped. Alright, so I guess you're going to need more proof. You can't just use that brain and figure out the totally easy conclusion that we never went to the moon. Get over it. But we got here a little letter for Mr. Eric Goldman, special consultant to the President of the White House, dated June 4th, 1965, and it is talking about needing 6 film critics, and they want to know which one is the most important American filmmaker. It says, attached is a complete breakdown for your records, and the following is a summary of the individuals principally mentioned. 4 men were named by all 6 critics. Then there's some unknown names. Then, number 2, Stanley Kubrick was mentioned by 4 of the 6 critics. One of these was in the most promising category. So now they're talking about Kubrick in 65. I wonder what for. Comes back, therefore, per our discussion, my office will proceed to contact these 4 guys and Kubrick. They will be asked what scenes they believe would best demonstrate their work. We will ask for alternatives so that we maintain latitude. So they're talking about needing some sort of work. I don't know what they could have been filming for the government in the late 60s. It is therefore particularly important that the person who handles this part of the program be truly knowledgeable and articulate on the subject so that this recognition is clearly justified. If neither of these possibilities work out, let me know, and I will give it further thought. Thank you. George Stevens Jr., Director, Motion Picture Service. Now, the next picture we have is Stanley Kubrick with NASA officials in England. This is around the same time, 1965. Left to right, you've got Frederick Ordway, and there's old Deke Slayton, another fantastic liar. Arthur Clarke, some unidentified man. Stanley Kubrick and George Miller. And there we got another picture of Stanley Kubrick getting ready to fool the world. This one just kind of proves that they didn't always know they were going to the moon, or they always knew they weren't. This is a memorandum for Mr. Rush, dated November 10th, 1972, saying, as is the practice. Now, you know what that means. That means, as we've done before. NASA is preparing a memorandum for the 40 Committee, which covers the eventuality of an Apollo Earth orbital contingency mission. Meaning, we don't know how to go to the moon. We're going to need to figure out something for them to do while they're up in the air. If Apollo 17 is forced to fly in Earth orbit, its camera system and orbital path would permit NASA to obtain 10-meter resolution imagery of the Soviet Union and China. We might as well spy on people while we're up there. I mean, we're going to go up there to fool people, but we should just fool people and spy on people. You'll notice in the next document, we've simply got a letter to the person who requested it through the Freedom of Information Act. He got a response basically saying, we're not going to be able to give you these records because of matters of national security. Those being the NASA Administrator's letter about the Apollo Earth Orbit Contingency Mission, 1972, the memorandum from the Deputy SEC DEF and the 40 Committee's agenda items for 1971, the Barfield and Executive Secretary Apollo Contingency 15 mission planning, the memorandum for national security for the Director of NASA for the Apollo 15 Earth Orbital Contingency Mission. So there was all these contingency missions, but nope, we didn't need them. Went to the moon, landed there, came back. We rock, USA. And the next document is just another one of these contingency plans and talking about what they're going to do if they don't go to the moon, because they've never been, and they're just up there spying on people. So, I know those aren't the kind of proofs that you usually like, Crime Box. You usually like pictures like this from the LRO, with just arrows and dots and pixels, saying, this is the lander, guys, come on. If you don't believe that, then you're an asshat, or whatever you called me. Knobhead. Spelled wrong. If we didn't land the moon, I'm a knobhead. Which is fine. You know, everyone's got different opinions of what evidence is. For instance, I call this evidence the tiny little Earth that is smaller than the moon from our perspective, and the astronaut that must be laying on his back to take the photo. I guess I just haven't seen that portion of the video yet where the astronaut's on the ground taking photos. I'm sure the LRO will send me a arrow and a pixel soon to tell me where I missed it. Here's another fantastic picture. Nice. That's the Earth, by the way. Yes, I know. I think they got it wrong when they told us that we're 4 times as big as the moon. They meant 4 times as small. So, you know, it's easy to mix those up. Next photo, we've got everyone's favorite Nazi, Werner von Braun, hanging out, looking at the moon set, standing on the moon. Now, I guess you need to be a scientist to differentiate between when these people were actually there and when they were in the training facility at Langley. I've had trouble myself, but Crying Brian hasn't. Here's another picture of von Braun walking off the set. I mean the moon. I mean the set. I mean the moon. One of those. Now let's listen to von Braun's idea of when we will next be heading back to the moon. This was taped in 1972. Now, for added hilarity, watch the beginning of this clip. There'll be a guy on your right who keeps trying to hand this guy some note, which the guy wants nothing to do with and keeps handing it back, then gets the note handed back to him, and then we get to listen to von Braun. I'll get that name right one day.
Glimpse of them on this CBS Evening News broadcast tonight, but it looks like that may not be possible. They are coming out to the van now, but we don't have a picture of it right at the moment for you. I was hoping for that. However, they will be on the way to this launch site very shortly, and we will be watching the launch, of course, later on tonight. In these final hours before Apollo 17, some people are gloomy about the future of space exploration. Not among them is Dr. Werner von Braun, the retired rocket expert who developed the big Saturn launch vehicles and used to send men on their way to the moon. I talked with Dr. von Braun earlier this evening.
We will go to the moon again. There may be a 10-year gap or so, but when we do return to the moon, we will go there with our reusable space shuttle, with probably a reusable two-stage tug to fly from low Earth orbit onto lunar orbit and land even on the moon itself with a vehicle that can return to a lunar orbit to be fueled up and do that portion of the trip also repeatedly.
Should somebody tell von Braun that this is Apollo 17? So Apollo 11 already landed on the moon. 12 landed on the moon. 13 didn't. 14 did. 15 did. 16 did. He just made it sound like, yeah, and we might actually land on the moon. And then come back. 10 years.
The net result will be that transportation cost to the lunar surface will be down to maybe 1/10 of what Apollo demands. And so we can really think of far more ambitious lunar surface missions, such as a semi-permanent installation on the moon, or traverses across the entire face of the moon, maybe of several thousand miles length, where would land a crew in one corner of the moon to pick it up a few weeks later in another location. I think all good things have an ending, and I consider Apollo a little bit, as it were, as a sailing ship and dog sled area to the South Pole. Well, next time we'll go to the South Pole, we'll go by turboprop airplane.
You said 10 years or so. You don't really expect that anything like that in 10 years. You're talking a much longer period than
Not
that.
necessarily. You see, the reusable space shuttle will be available in 1978 with first successful flights, and it can very definitely be an operational vehicle by 1980, which is 8 years away, and 2 more years will suffice to go back to the moon with the tug that is carried into orbit by the shuttle. So I'm not at all pessimistic.
Well, what is it in our makeup that is possible for us to get excited about an Apollo 11, man's first step on the moon, and within 2 short years of that time, be as blasé as the public seems to be today about this particular launch and the space program generally?
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Well, I think it's the excitement of the new. I mean, it's like getting married, and being married. The love is still there and the excitement is still there, but it's no longer the honeymoon.
I mean, I see this and I ask, what about resolution? We don't ever get better at resolution in photos in 40 years? And I also ask in the picture on the right, where is Antarctica? Alright, so tell me, Big Three, what was your most memorable part of your journey to the moon?
Apollo 11 was filled with vivid experiences. One that comes to mind in my case is the flying through the moon shadow and seeing the sun eclipsed by the moon as we approached it. That was a very spectacular sight.
So what advice would you give to, say, the first Mars astronauts?
Well, I would advise them not to take my advice. It's a rapidly changing world. Science and technology evolve at a rapid pace. The things that my experience would dictate are 3 decades old and are probably not applicable today. But I am encouraged by the fact that there are so many people asking those questions, which seems to assure me that our future has a great deal of promise.
A Martian astronaut would probably be better off studying the voyages of Vasco da Gama or Lewis and Clark rather than he would listening to 3 people who'd spent only 8 days out on the road. Round trip for a Mars mission is going to be in the vicinity of 2.5 years, and that's close in duration to those of the early explorers.
I think Mike's right. A trip to Mars is going to be a very long and involved and a major segment of a person's life, and there's going to be a lot of times to be thinking about it, discussing it en route beforehand and afterward. I don't know as our advice would be that pertinent to anyone at that time.
So, anybody but Buzz, because he's drunk, what do you think the most important impact of Apollo was?
Going to the moon certainly was the first expedition departing the Earth and viewing back on the Earth, and in its very simplistic initial challenges that it gave us ways of looking at other planets in the universe and gave us a better perspective as to how to look back on our own planet and to make judgments as to its origin and perhaps some of the dangers that it might face in the future and how to go about analyzing that. Certainly the moon had many contrasts. It's not a live tectonic body. It's a very dead object created by combinations of volcanism and meteorite impact. Rather than answering many questions, I think it raised many more questions, but certainly our level of understanding was immeasurably increased, and it's not for us necessarily to give the best appraisal of that.
Thanks, Buzz. You think it's almost time for your nap? Let me ask you, what advice would you give somebody who's looking to become a scientist or an astronaut?
I'm very reluctant to advise young people as to what to study. The requirements for space travel keep changing. They might want a test pilot one day, a physicist the next, a medical doctor the following Tuesday. I think what is important is that children do well in whatever field they choose. I think excellence is the key to it, and I think excellence is a lot more important than excellence in a particular field. Excellence in whatever field they feel suits them best.
Space and its frontiers certainly are new and challenging, and because they're new and challenging, they're also uncertain, and I think anyone aspiring that as a career field has to be equipped with a lot of patience and the ability to cope with things not turning out exactly the way they may perceive that they would ahead of time.
Well, Buzz, I'll tell you. I thought about it, and I'm convinced. I believe you went to the moon and never went to the drink.
Wait a minute. Strike that. Reverse it. Thank you.
So Sir Fred Hoyle in 1948 said, once a photograph of the Earth taken from the outside is available, a new idea as powerful as any in history will be let loose. And we all know that's exactly what happened. And in order for that something to have happened, they would first need to teach us the impossible. They would need to make us believe something that if we told it to a 16-year-old who grew up detached from the indoctrination system, would simply laugh in our face. Something like the universe is 13.8 billion years old. And even crazier still. Like, take the distant galaxy GRB 090423, which stands for ridiculous bullshit 090423. Believe it or not, 30 billion light years away. Yep, 30 billion light years away. You can believe that or not, although I suggest if you have any common sense that you not. It is a little bit too far to be believable, and I'll tell you why. First of all, isn't the universe only 13.8 billion years old? Well, I'm not positive about it, but even if we were both together at the onset of the universe, wouldn't we at maximum fly away from each other equally at 13.8 billion years, which would leave us at 26 and still not even at the 30? So who knows? Certainly not me. I guess you have to go to somebody like Neil deGrasse or another one of the high priests of scientism. So, just so you know how much 30 billion light years is, you want to take that 30 billion, multiply it by 6 trillion, and you get 180 septillion. That is 180 followed by 21 zeros. That is a lot of zeros. It's like the National American Atheist Convention. So let's do a little trivia. Now, I'm going to ask you not to cheat and actually think of your answer, and then if you are an honest individual, go ahead and put it in the comments what you came up with before I tell you the answer. The question is, if we put $100 in a bucket every second of every day, non-stop, how long would it take us until we had 180 septillion dollars? Alright, so $100 in a bucket every second, every day, non-stop. How long till we have 180 septillion? Remember, we have to have the inverse trig functions, carry the sector of the circle, divide by the polynomial coefficient with a cosine denominator, carry the 3. Alright, if you had 4,500, you're wrong. But whoever had 7.4 million was way off. Did you have 13 billion? Wrong. The right answer? 57 trillion years of putting $100 in a bucket every second, every day to get to the distance of that galaxy. So I hope you globe earthers know that you have to believe in this. You have to subscribe to this if you believe in the round earth and the distant sun and all these galaxies and bullshit other stars. That all the stars, just as the constellations, hold their form as they move across the night sky, and yet the closest from the furthest is 216,000 times as far. That really should put you in the nut house. So I have to ask, why would you believe in that bullshit with absolutely no proof? They have no proof. Their proof is that they can measure it with special tools. These men that you don't know, that have no interest of yours at heart, simply tell you that it's true so they can keep their little jobs and keep their little fairy tale going. And I'm telling you that if you just used common sense, you'd realize things aren't that far because that far doesn't exist. Okay, now try and follow along. Last time I did this little diagram, I guess I lost some people. And I wish I could get an answer from Professor Flowing Locks, but he probably won't answer me, just like he never answered his letters. Now, I really suggest that you get a globe and play with it, get a round ball and play with it so that you understand that living on one is impossible. Okay, so look at this diagram. Let's take the top depiction of Earth first. And let's look at the person who's in the green arrow. And if I told him to look north, he would be looking in the direction of the green arrow, correct? So now let's say 12 hours later, he is spun to the night side of the Earth. He's still the green arrow. If I told him to look north, he'd be looking that direction, correct? Now, how is that to start? Second one, let's look at the blue arrow. Up top, you can see starting at the very bottom of the Earth there, looking north. And on the second globe at the bottom, he's now on the night side looking north in a completely opposite direction. Now we can look at the red arrow, who's on the left side. 12 hours later, he's on the right side, on the night side. And they're both kind of looking close to the same direction, but still not exactly. So now you can kind of see where there is a bit of a problem in the fact that if you had people scattered all over the globe, all looking north, you'd have a person looking in every single direction possible. It just doesn't work on a globe. I mean, by all means, if you want to believe it, go right ahead, enjoy yourself. But I'm just telling you that you might want to look at it a little bit closer and actually do some experiments and not just trust Richard Dawkins, because he sells books and he tells lies. Now here's why you shouldn't believe NASA at all, and this is actually a video I'm working on right now, but I'll give you a sneak peek. I'm sure you've seen the big NASA building, seen on your screen right now. Always taken from very cool views, up high or down low, to show off its massiveness. Well, guess how big NASA says that building is? They say it's 525 feet high. If that were true, let me put the Statue of Liberty next to the building. You tell me if NASA may be telling a little bit of a tall tale. Now, is there a reasonable explanation for this apparent size discrepancy? Or is there something more sinister afoot? Or in this case, with the Statue of Liberty, a sandal. So check out my next video, in which I will break the case and show you the reasons behind the deception. But to sum it up, somebody has some size issues, which they compensate for by lying and telling us all how huge their structures are. Then, still feeling inadequate, they had to steal all of our money, and they built themselves some really big and bad rockets, and guess what? They still couldn't take her to the moon. Eventually, the government had to shut them down. And now all they do is write sex in the clouds of their CGI Earth. But hopefully they learn their lesson, that whoever they think is going to come is not. That's the moral of the story. Crying box. I mean, lion talks. I mean, Professor Brian Cox, flowing locks. You, sir, need a definition of science, which is the study of the world all around us based on experimentation, and it is in constant revision. It is always in progress. Yet you and Neil Tyson deGrasse think you have all the answers. So much so that you felt the need to call me a knobhead, and you told me to get a new brain. Well, science can't purvey absolute truth, my friend. Science is a mechanism. It's a way of trying to improve your knowledge of nature, and it's a system for testing your thoughts against the universe to see if they match. And lately, when I've been testing what you've told me against the universe, they don't match. I think that you're afraid to look at Apollo. You're afraid to answer open letters. You're afraid to provide real evidence. And a real scientist is not a person who gives answers, but one who asks the right questions. So I'm asking you to prove it. Come on and prove the curve. Show me this 789-mile curvature between California and New York. Just show it to me. Show me somebody on the moon. This company, Moon Express, said in 2013 that by 2015, they would have a webcam on the moon. So much so that their website says they are the first private company to ever land on the moon. They also won $1 million from Google as part of the Lunar X Prize preliminary contest. The main contest hasn't even happened yet. And with that $1 million, they still have done nothing but disappear from their Facebook and disappear from online. They haven't made a post since 2014. So what's going on here? What happened to that $1 million? I mean, I don't even believe you can land on the moon. I don't believe it's a round sphere ball that you can land on. However, for $1 million, I will make the damn moon myself, put it up in the sky, and go land on it for you. $1,000,000, easy. I'll have leftover money for snacks and gummy bears. That's just me. I'm thrifty. Now, if the moon landings were real, it's been 43 years, and Moon Express said they'd be there, why aren't they there? You know, being a scientist requires you to have faith in the uncertain, and you should find pleasure in mystery and cultivating doubt and questions, and not get treated like I do for questioning your dogma. There's no surer way to screw up an experiment than to be certain of its outcome. And you new era scientists who pretend to be scientists, you just cling to your religious authority and your accepted dogmas, and you don't even allow criticism. To you, it's blasphemy, and to me, that's religious. It's not him? Oh, sorry. That's him, right? Okay. Wait, what? That's not Brian either? Oh, my bad. This one. There we go. That's not him? Who are all these people? I thought they were all crying box. You sure that's not him? This one. No? Oh, I know which one. This one. Thank you. Jeez, that was tough. Oh, are you going to be able to show me men on the moon, Brian? Or are you going to bow to your masters and be a brain-dead believer in what men tell you is true? The globe is impossible, and that is what the evidence shows. So if following truth means that I'm a knobhead, so be it. But I'm going to keep my brain. It's working, which is a lot more than I can say for you, Professor. And that is a wrap. This has been Jeranism, reminding you to be kind to one another, don't lie to one another. Remember to test everything I say, but don't forget to test what they say too. Open your mind. There's truth inside. Till next time.